This was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Chris in Quebec City, Canada. How did it work when a promoter wanted to book Andre the Giant back in the day? Did they just call him, or did they have to go through Vince McMahon Sr.? If you didn't have a good relationship with Vince McMahon Sr., were you shit out of luck? Did you just pay Andre at the end of the night, or did you have to pay Vince McMahon Sr., who then paid Andre later on? Was he typically working for a flat fee or a percent of the gate?
Good God. A lot of questioning there. First of all, once that Andre, and obviously the new book on Andre that we highly recommend by Bertrand Hebert and Pat LaPrade tells you a great amount of detail on how Andre came to North America and was booked out of Montreal and had his first exposure for Vern Gagne in the AWA. But once that Vince McMahon Sr. took over his booking and signed him to a contract and became his booker, no, you didn't call Andre, because Andre was all over the fucking world every day, and there were no cell phones back in those days. You would work it through Vince Sr. and his office, and every promoter knew that. And dates on the Giant obviously were highly prized because it would always lead to the house being up whenever Andre came to town, except in the rare occasions in a few places where he had been there so much that he almost became commonplace. Then every once in a while the edge would be off of it, and you'd want to leave him off for a while and then bring him back. I mean, it got to the point where he was in Atlanta a lot. At one point, because that was a major airport hub, blah, blah, blah. But Watts used to tell me that the way Vince Sr. worked it, because he was the owner of the biggest promotion in the country, the biggest territory financially in the country, and also he had Andre under contract. He could pay guys that were working in your territory more than you could. So, but instead of stealing them, Vince Sr. would say that he would call Watts and he'd say, boy, I really want Waldo Von Erich to start as my, heel to work with Bruno or whatever. Do you think he could be finished up for you in a couple of months? Oh, sure, Vince. Yes, Watts is going to finish Waldo, because Waldo's going to go anyway because the money's going to be better. But when Watts worked with Vince on seamlessly arranging the transition so that everybody was happy, then Vince Sr. would say, tell you what, I'll give you a week on the Giant in September. He can make your Superdome show or whatever. And that's the way something like that happened. But if you just wanted Andre, you called and said, when can I get a date or dates on Andre? And the New York office would send back his available dates. And then if you could work it out where you could get Andre in Georgia or Florida or Tennessee for the week of March 1st through the 8th, you tried to put him in, obviously, in all of your biggest towns in the main event, figure out some way that he's involved. Some babyface needs a special partner, or some heel team needs the Giant to come in for a handicap match and beat the fuck out of him, or whatever it may be. And yes, Vince got a booking fee off of doing that, off of Andre's money. I think it's probably, even if there was an agreement, it probably depended on who the promoter was. If you were more in with Vince, you probably got a better deal. I don't know about the percentage versus the payoff. At first, was it not that when he was first making the tours around the country, 74, 75, 76, he was a percentage, but later on, he was still did main event pay, but he only worked big buildings. So, it all worked out. What do you know, Brian?
I'm not sure off the top.
I don't even know if that's one question that the book went into. I remember it talked about some of the payoffs that he got and the amounts that he made, but I don't know that if it differentiated whether it was percentage or payoff. But obviously, Andre was the highest paid wrestler in the world in the 1970s. He made the Guinness Book of World Records. It would have been Andre, Bruno Sammartino, and whoever the NWA champion would have been the three highest paid wrestlers in the business in the 70s, except for Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki, who were in a whole nother they were in another world and had a whole other economics going on. But as far as in the actual wrestling business anywhere but Japan for those two, Andre, Bruno, and the NWA champion. And then there were a few guys underneath that would start surprising some people. And I guarantee you there was a couple of years that neither Ole Anderson nor Jerry Lawler nor Dusty Rhodes were very far off NWA title money because they had either a piece of the promotion or were booking a major territory or whatever.
You think Mil Mascaras ever got on that list?
Boy, because he did so little work in this country overall, and as opposed to his appearances in Mexico, he made good money in this country because you wouldn't bring Mascaras in unless you were going to feature him and pay him where he was going to draw: Houston, California, New York. But I don't know what the pay structure was like in Mexico and what the economy was like. I mean, he always lived well from what you could tell in Mexico and was probably the highest paid guy there, but I don't know what that would have translated to at that time, versus where everybody else was.
Did you ever hear anything about Eddie Einhorn's payoffs or Pedro Martinez when he was partnering with Eddie Einhorn with the IWA?
I heard he was fair, but not markish. And I mean, you would add, or now that you mention it, you'd add guys to that list of almost the highest paid wrestlers in the business, like Vern Gagne, because, but where do you separate the wrestling pay from the fact that he owned the thing too? Some of Vern's top guys, like Nick Bockwinkel, would make $150,000 a year, but they'd only work 15 days a month. So there were a variety of, I think Einhorn, to further answer your question, was more noted for his regular business contacts, ability to get on television and ability to get into buildings and things because of his pro sports connections and his TV, connections and et cetera, rather than he treated everybody fairly, but I don't think he was throwing money around left and right where anybody was, the highest paid guy in the business by working.
But that's why I asked, though, because they got Mascaras and they made him their champion, and obviously Mascaras had already...
just put a period on it. They got Mascaras and made him their champion. To be a world champion in America, you think he's going to hold him up for money? I'm sure he fucking got a good deal, but that was a big part of that. Just like when Inoki bought Pedro Martinez's territory in Buffalo and Cleveland because of and made the NWF. He wanted to be a world champion in America, so he bought the fucking company. At least Mascaras didn't have to buy the fucking company.